fellow debaters. I'm Brittany Mahoosier and this is Braden Fraser. Today we will be discussing one of the growing issues facing agriculture today, livestock dehorning and disbudding. For this debate, our team will be assuming the prosecution role by arguing for banning of livestock dehorning practices. One reason dehorning and disbudding should be deemed illegal is because it puts great stress on the animals, thus affecting their overall well-being and performance. Dehorning is also a tremendously painful practice which almost always leads to increased behavioral indicators of stress and discomfort, as well as increased negative psychological and production factors. This practice also leads to decreased feeding and ruminating, leading to decreased weight gain. Dehorning is very traumatic for cows that are only a few weeks old and is potentially fatal for older cows. That being said, there is no reasonable time to dehorn an animal. No matter when you decide to dehorn, you are risking the well-being of the animal. In this debate, we will present to you many reasons why dehorning should be illegal, as well as safe alternatives, such as breeding hornless cattle.
Dehorning cattle is a process by which the horns on the cattle are removed. It has been proven to have multiple advantages in regards to not only livestock, but also the producer. The practice of dehorning is supported by various medical associations with numerous methods to minimize the pain and recovery of the procedure. The purpose of dehorning is to increase safety within the livestock as well as the handlers. Horns on livestock endangers the animals and has been shown to bruise and pierce cattle, causing harm to the animals as well as their decrease in economical value. A decrease in economical value comes from the limiting housing of livestock. Simply, livestock with horns take up more space and therefore the farmer needs more room to house more cattle. Not only are horns a danger to livestock and handlers, they limit economical value and the viable meat per head.
Okay, so according to PETA's article, Dehorning, Dairy's Darkest Secret, there is no safe time to dehorn an animal. It is very traumatic for calves that are only a few weeks old, but is often far worse for more mature cows. Mature cows require harsher processes such as sawing using sharp wires and cutting off the surrounding skin just to remove their horns. This can cause excessive bleeding, death of tissue cells, bone fractures, sinusitis, and even death. Is dehorning worth risking the lives of our cattle?
In most scenarios, livestock is dehorned after the first few months to eliminate the longer effects it has on older cattle. During the first few months, there is no evidence that states that the pain is worse in older calves than younger calves.
Point is, dehorning is supported by various medical associations such as the Global Animal Partnership 5-Step Animal Welfare Program requires producers who practice disbudding to perform the procedure prior to 6 weeks of age. The Northeast Dairy Producers Association is in support and recommends that cows be dehorned before 8 weeks of age. The American Veterinary Medical Association Animal Welfare Policy approves the castration and dehorning of cattle in April 2008. Also supported by the Canadian Veterinary and Medical Association, and also educated sources are in support of the dehorning of livestock because on its benefits towards the safety of animals and handlers, an opinion from an educated source should outweigh the opinion of a source that has no experience in the field.
These sources are undoubtedly credible, but two of them seem rather dated. The information may or may not still be relevant today, as the public opinion towards dehorning practices has evolved since then. In other countries, such as the EU countries and Australia, it is already viewed as an inhumane practice, and there are laws in place to protect the welfare of the animals. It is time Canada listens to the consumers and follows in their footsteps to put more strict laws in place concerning dehorning practices. According to an article from Farm Animal Welfare Education Center, even though dehorning and disbudding is claimed to improve handling of animals for farmers, it is not a justifiable practice as they are undeniably painful practices. Dehorning leads to many behavioral and psychological problems in cattle, including increased heart rate, increased hormone production, as well as decreased weight gain. The ease of handling for farmers is not worth the stress on the cattle.
Although pain is present in the process of dehorning, it is minimal and underweighs the risks of keeping livestock with horns. Horns can cause pain through bruising and piercing other livestock. This can lead to infection and potential death of livestock as well as a decrease in the profit of meat. Cortisol, further research in the references you have provided about the effects of cortisol addresses that the levels return to a normal state after a couple hours Chemical removal of the horns affects the cortisol levels for the longest, which is only 24 hours.
In saying that, methods are used to minimize pain. The Canadian Veteran Medical Association supports dehorning and disbudding in cattle for human and animal safety reasons, provided that disbudding is performed within the first month of life, and methods are used to control the pain involved, and in case of dehorning, bleeding is controlled. Another scholarly source states that if disbudding or dehorning is carried out, the consequences in terms of stress and pain can be alleviated by a combination of local anesthesia and anti-inflammatory treatments, as well as sedation of animals. Over the years, methods have evolved to minimize pain. Why is dehorning inhumane when medical treatments are involved so the animal cannot physically feel the process?
You are correct in saying that the medicine has come a long way, but although the technologies exist to reduce pain and stress on the animals, the risk always remains that producers and veterinarians will fail to utilize these medical substances to limit pain. One Canadian survey in one of our sources suggested that only 72% of veterinarians provided analgesia in time of dehorning calves. This kind of negligence is concerning from an animal welfare perspective.
In today's world, with all of the technology we have available to us, there are many alternatives to the horrible dehorning practices. One alternative would be to breed hornless cattle. According to the article, Cattle Dehorning and Alternatives in the EU, the natural absence of horns is determined by a single gene, with polled being dominant over horned. Other countries, such as countries within the EU, are already incorporating safer alternatives to dehorning. As the up-and-coming generation of cattle farmers in Canada, why don't we utilize this technology to end the harmful dehorning practices?
Although having the ability to test for the horned or polled allele, it is not always accessible for all producers. Along with not being available to the tests, can be expensive when considering the entire herd has to be tested. Polled inheritance is very complex. Nonetheless, the beef industry is making steady progress towards dehorning through genetics. That's a quote from the OMA FRE government site.
Also, dehorning of livestock helps to limit meat waste. According to the latest National Beef Quality Audit, fewer than 11% of non-fed cattle and fewer than 13% of fed cattle processed in Canada had any type of horns, and fewer than 3% had full horns. But the few horns that remain are costly. The economic loss to the industry caused by bruising is estimated at $2.10 per head processed, in addition to 6 cents per head due to extra packing plant labor costs to remove horns from the carcasses before skinning, which are intended to encourage the dehorning.
What's the question?
Okay, how will the livestock and viable meat be kept safe with the potential threat of horns?
Although dehorning may prevent financial losses, it is not worth the cost or time needed by the farmer. A large sector of dehorning goes on in the dairy industry, where carcass damage is not as huge of a factor as it is in the beef industry. Considering that polled livestock can produce an outcome that makes everything better off, including animal activists, we should ban dehorning and move towards breeding hornless animals.
According to an article published by the Veterinary Clinics of North America in 2013, over the years there has been an increase in social concern regarding the unsafe dehorning practices. In 2013, countries in the EU and Australia had already put dehorning laws in place to protect the welfare of the cattle. This article also states that regardless of the method chosen to dehorn cattle, behavioral and stress changes were noted, meaning that there is no acceptable way to dehorn. Given the known consequences and changing social demands, why is the harmful dehorning practice still widely used here in Canada?
Okay. Management practices such as dehorning can be performed by veterinarians. Veterinarians dehorn 31% of dairy clients, and almost all of them use anesthetics. The most common reason for producers to not use anesthetics was because of the cost. Many producers use dehorning as a practice because it does limit, or it is an advantage in keeping the herd and producers safe when handling the animals.
Although dehorning of livestock may seem offensive to some people, it must be appreciated that the temporary discomfort caused by the operation is completely outweighed by the long-term benefits of having the whole herd free from damage caused by horns. Some benefits include hornless cattle will reduce the aggression and competition around the feeding areas, and you can transport a larger number in single load because the horns take up more space. So question being, what are the long-term benefits of livestock keeping their horns?
The long-term benefits to the farmer for having an unhorned herd due to dehorning is not comparable to the discomfort and issues resulting from the procedure. Not only is there discomfort to the animal, dehorning also causes many behavior and physiological problems in the animal post-operation. Dehorning isn't always successful and can cause excessive bleeding, bone fractures, and even death. Dehorning is not proved to be a safe practice and therefore it should be banned.
According to an article in Animal Welfare Issues concerning procedures of calves dehorning, the presence of horns has many disadvantages to farmers, such as bruising of other cattle in feedlots and in transportation. If farmers gave up the practice of dehorning cattle because it is illegal and moved towards a more safe alternative, such as breeding hornless cattle, not only would it allow the farmers to have more time, but they would have healthier cattle with less behavioral and psychological problems altogether.
Horns can cause harm to livestock as well as handlers. They are more efficiently transported without horns. An Applied Science Report article states that horns are weapons that are used in cattle in competition encounters at the feed bunk, hay bale, shade tree, water trough, over breeding privileges or dominance and against mad and offensive or protective situations. Leaving horns on beef cattle makes all of these encounters potentially more dangerous, both to people and to the cattle. Okay, and then closing statement.
Dehorning is a procedure that should not continue to exist in animal production and in our society any longer. Public opinion is shifting. As citizens of Canada and North America become more conscious of the practices involved in producing the foods that end up on our families' tables, they will demand the egg and food sector to change. It will be up to the members of the egg and food industry to hear these cries, understand the consumers' wants and needs, and ultimately revolve to the changing world we live in. The politicians of our country will also play important roles in listening to and valuing their constituents' concerns on this matter and matters related to it. There is evidence that indicates that dehorning causes tremendous pain and catalyzes stress-related responses. This prosecution is not asking for livestock producers to comply with anything unreasonable or unachievable, but rather insist that they utilize and embrace the polled genetics to their fullest extent.
Although dehorning of cattle may seem offensive to some people, it must be appreciated that the temporary discomfort caused by the operation is completely outweighed by the long-term benefits. This is again that quote from the MSW government site. And after hearing both sides of the argument, we believe that it's something we can all agree with. In closing, yes, the animal has potential to experience some slight discomfort during the process and for a very limited time after. But when looking at the bigger picture, we not see the added value from a dehorned animal. They bring more money for the producer when sent to auction. It reduces bruising on other animals, which would later have to be cut out and discarded, adding to the issue of food waste which the world is facing today. Not to mention the common practice of dehorning is supported by the Northeast Dairy Producers Association, the Global Animal Partnership Welfare Program, and the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association. All these reasons are why we believe that the common practice of dehorning livestock should be continued and implemented for everyone's benefit, including the animal.
Well done.